how many of you have been following the French election? And I know you might be thinking, who gives a shit about the French? But you have to remember, France is a one of the most important countries in the EU and in NATO. So this is very much related to Ukraine, right? And it's important for many other reasons, which I'll get to. And I'm also going to tell you why it relates to the US. Because there's something that you've been hearing if you're in the US. You've been hearing this same old catchphrase telling you to go vote for Democrats. And the French have their own version, which I'm going to get to in a second, right? So right now, this is the first round of the French presidential elections. You've got 12 candidates, and basically, they filter it down to 2 candidates, and then there's a runoff vote. Because no one today got more than 50% of the vote. If they did, they'd be the president, right? But that's not what happened. So right now, we're going to have what's called a runoff vote on April 24th. And this was very, very close. This was very tight. Let me show you the results here of today's presidential elections in France, okay? You can see here, Emmanuel Macron, he's the incumbent, so he's the current president. He got 27.4% of the vote. And then trailing him is Marine Le Pen. She got 24% of the vote. And then behind her is Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He got 21.7% of the vote. So again, for those of you who don't know, Emmanuel Macron, as I said, he's the president, but his party is La République En Marche, LREM. Marine Le Pen, so just after him. I mean, again, Macron is a neoliberal. I don't need to explain that to you. He's a neoliberal poster boy. Marine Le Pen is far right, and she's her party is called National Rally in English. In French, it's Rassemblement National. It used to be called the Front National, right? And her father is obviously also, he used to be a very big figure in far-right politics in France, but now she's kind of taken his place, right? He's passed on the torch to her. And Mélenchon is the far left, right? So his party is La France Insoumise, which basically means like, unsubmissive France or insubmissive France. And so you can see here, Mélenchon, I mean, he lost out by literally just 2%, right? Like, earlier, if you look at the results earlier, it was 0.8% difference between Mélenchon, the far left, and Le Pen, far right. And I mean, this is very, very bad, right? Because on the one hand, there are people who are saying, well, Marine Le Pen is closer than ever to gaining the presidency. The far right in France are closer than ever to taking l'Élysée, which is the French equivalent of the White House. Now, it's not just about that, because honestly, there's not much difference between Macron and Le Pen. But the fact that Mélenchon, the far left candidate, he lost by, I mean, so little is really a shame. Is really a shame, because I'm going to break down all of their programs in a moment, and you're going to see how, Le Pen and Macron are basically offering nothing, and the big daddy, the big package is coming from Mélenchon. It's not even comparable. It's not even close. And a lot of people are angry. A lot of people are angry because the French take voting very seriously. They take protesting very seriously. They take direct action very seriously. So the question is, for a lot of people now, what to do, right? A lot of people who supported Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the far left candidate, what do they do now? Because for them, Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen, they're not that much different. And you're having the same thing that you see in the United States. You know how they tell you in the US, vote blue no matter who? They basically try to tell you, yeah, but it's the lesser of two evils, and you have to go vote by. It's the same thing here. It's exactly the same thing, right? If you go and you read the headlines in the French press saying, c'est irresponsable, it's irresponsible not to go vote, because you're basically handing the presidency to the far right. They try to like blame you, right? It's the same thing in the US. If you don't go vote for Joe Biden, you're handing the presidency to fascist Donald Trump. Yawn. We've heard this a million times. As if, Emmanuel Macron is like some great friend of the left, right? It was just like, you remember what he did to the yellow vests, right? You remember that? And then he instead of making concessions to the workers, he blames them. He says, oh, look at these violent people, and violence is never acceptable. And he tried to like flip the whole thing on them. I mean, again, I don't need to explain this to the French. Voilà. Macron le connaît, ça c'est clair. Now, I want to just run you through a little bit of their policies, because once you understand once you understand how like little they're offering, it's really bad. I mean, Marine Le Pen, the far right candidate, she's basically saying that she wants to give cops, you know, something similar to qualified immunity in the US. So basically, they would be able to use more lethal force, right? Présomption de légitime défense. So basically, the courts would favor the police when they use you know, lethal force or a deadly force. And then she wants to ban citizenship by birth on French soil. So, you know, if you're whatever nationality your parents are, if you're born on French soil, she wants to make sure that you don't get citizenship. And she wants to ban family reunification, right? She wants to hold a referendum on immigration. So again, you know, these are some of her big policies. She's against Islamism, whatever that means in her case. And then she wants to clamp down on immigration because, you know, France really takes so many refugees, right? And she wants to quit NATO. Now that's an interesting one, right? So she wants to quit NATO. She doesn't want to quit the EU anymore. She changed her mind because, you know, in 2017, back then, she was saying she wants to quit the EU. And she lost quite badly. But now she's changed her position. She's trying to market herself, brand herself as more of a moderate, whatever that means. This is so ridiculous to me because I went to a French school. So I'm very familiar with French politics. I'm very familiar with France and French culture. And when people think that the media are branding Marine Le Pen as far right, I'm like, mais t'es con? You're an idiot. Everybody knows Marine Le Pen is l'extrême droite. She's far right. Her father, they're proudly far right. I don't care what she brands herself as now. I don't care what she says. She's far right. Everybody with half a brain cell knows this, except outside France, apparently. You know, other things that she wants to do, because remember, she wanted to quit the EU and the Schengen zone. She doesn't want that anymore. It's just NATO that she wants to quit. She wants to build 6 new nuclear reactors. So these are the EPR. That's the latest generation. She wants to lower VAT. So, you know, TVA in France, value-added tax in English, right? So she wants to lower it from 20% to 5.5% in terms of fuel and gas because she considers these like basic necessities. And she wants to prioritize French nationals when it comes to, you know, housing, when it comes to employment. And she wants people to wear uniforms in primary and collège. Collège is basically sixième, troisième. I don't know. It's like when you're 12 to 15, you know, junior high. I don't know. But that's what it is. And she wants to make sure that if you're under 30, there's no income tax. That's a good way to get young people to vote for her. And speaking of which, I want to show you this Yougov poll, which is very interesting because they say here that if you look, let's look at the ages 18 to 24. Okay. You have more people in that range who would vote for Marine Le Pen than would vote for Macron. So it's very interesting. I don't think it's just because of the tax thing, but nevertheless, it's worth mentioning. And then again, 25 to 34, same trend. 35 to 44, same trend. 45 to 54, same trend. Like the only people that would save Macron are over the age of 55. So, you know, make of that what you will. Now, when it comes to Macron, I mean, again, this guy is really poster boy neoliberal. I don't need to explain this to you. You guys know this. And I'm not just talking about the yellow vests. If you look at his program, he wants to build 6 new nuclear reactors to begin with, and then there'll be another 8. And he wants to raise the retirement age, and he wants more restrictions on l'RSA. RSA is Revenu de Solidarité Active, right? So it's basically like a form of welfare in France. He wants to put more restrictions on it. So you have to go and complete like 20 hours of some course a week to be able to receive that money. I mean, these are basically, there's really nothing compelling that he's offering. Really nothing. Now, if you look at Mélenchon, oh man, I don't even know where to start. This guy is bringing the full package. Over here, Jean-Luc Mélenchon. This guy, you know, France is basically, it works on a system of republics, right? Over time, you've had governments that dissolved the French constitution and created a new republic, right? So right now, France is in its 5th republic. Ça s'appelle la 5e République. Mélenchon wants to abolish the constitution and form a 6th republic, right? Which again, there's nothing like, that might sound weird to you if you're not French. It's not that weird in France. Like I told you, they've done this 5 times already. So he wants to create a 6th republic. That means with a new constitution. And this is really incredible because he wants basically random citizens to be working in this assembly. And he wants, this is incredible, he wants French citizens to be able to suggest referendums instead of lawmakers suggesting referendums. Okay? So, I mean, that's really incredible. And not only that, basically he wants citizens to have the power to remove officials from office, right? So if you don't like someone, you can literally just vote them out, which is something the Yellow Vests wanted, by the way, right? Les Gilets jaunes. He wants to make voting mandatory, so you have to vote, but he also wants to recognize spoiled ballots, I guess you could say, or vote blanc, basically when you don't write in any candidate, right? He wants to recognize that so that it's actually factored in. He wants to lower the voting age to 16. And on top of that, he wants something, which I just told you, which is a referendum d'initiative citoyen, RIC. That's the thing where citizens can, they can suggest laws or abolish laws and remove people from office. It's called RIC. He wants, in terms of school education, free school books, free transport for students, free food and organic food. He wants students, I think it was €1,000 a month that you could get if you're a student, or up to 1,000. He also wants to implement mandatory civil service. So, countries like Austria have that. You can either, do the military for 9 months or, Zivildienst, which is basically civil service, which would be paid. And originally he wanted to abandon nuclear energy. He's by 2030, he's moved that to 2045. And his goal is to get to 100% renewables by 2050, specifically using wind. He wants to raise le SMIC to 1,400 euros. So this basically, we're talking about the minimum wage. And he wants to make sure that you don't have these obnoxious ratios in companies where the CEO is making like 20 times more what like a new worker is making, or the guy at the bottom of the pyramid, right? Because that's usually what it is, not just in France, but in most of capitalist countries. The CEO is making like 20 times what the guy at the bottom is making, and he wants to abolish that. He wants to change the tax brackets as well, because right now you have six tax brackets. He wants them to be 14 tax brackets, so it's much more progressive, and it makes more sense. He wants to reduce the working week from 35 hours to 32 hours, specifically for things that involve manual labor. This is really important because, people take this for granted. Again, we learned this in school. The French really fought for this stuff. It's really the socialists who made sure you get paid vacation, paid leave. Your work hours per week are limited, right? You're not going to be worked to death. There's a retirement age. Like these are really fundamental things that a lot of people take for granted. And again, like I said, congé payé, paid leave. He wants to raise it from 5 to 6 weeks. So basically adding another week of vacation. That's not bad. And lower the age of retirement from 62 to 60. He wants to hire 100,000 health workers. And he wants to again, guarantee, that if you're born in France, you get the citizenship no matter where your parents come from. And he wants to quit NATO, right? So again, do you see the package? Like, it's not comparable. You cannot compare Le Pen's program or platform, right? In French, it's a programme. You can't compare their platform, Macron and Le Pen, to what Mélenchon is offering. It blows it out of the water. It's not even a question of like left or right. It's just way better. You read that and you see like this guy actually cares about French people, right? Instead of Macron, who cares about bankers, and Marine Le Pen, well, c'est Marine Le Pen, right? So, unfortunately, he's out. He is out. And it's really sad. A lot of people are actually angry in France because you see the difference. It's 21.7 to 24, okay? So, people are really angry because, do you guys remember when I was covering the Democratic primaries in the US with you on this channel? Those were fun times. Do you remember how people were so angry that the field was so large? Because basically, instead of everybody voting for Bernie Sanders to get him as the Democratic nominee, you had all of these votes going everywhere. Buttigieg and God, what's his name again? That Mike Bloomberg. It was just ridiculous, and people are angry about this because what the French did today, they did exactly what happened in the U.S. primary. You had everybody coming in, running in the Democratic primary, splitting, splintering the vote. And then as soon as the game was over, they all got behind Biden. And what do you think the Green Party and the Communist Party did today? They got behind Macron. People are going, they're so angry about this because they cost Mélenchon the second round vote. So he's knocked out. And on top of it, it's not like they cost him the vote. They're also traitors. That's their words. They're calling them traitors because they're now, how's the Communist Party and the Green Party getting behind Macron? What has he done for workers? What has he done for the environment? It's absurd, right? So, just look at these tweets. You can see people say, voilà l'autre traître qui pointe son melon pour appeler à voter Macron, right? So look at this other traitor saying you should vote for Macron. People are really angry, honestly. And let me just show you. Let me show you the results over here. Do you see how this would have made a difference? Because if you look at the other votes down here, 7% here, 4% over here, Roussel 2%. It does make a difference because Mélenchon lost to Le Pen by literally 2-3%. So yes, it would have made a difference. It's not guaranteed that it would have made a difference, but it would have improved his chances. You can't deny that, right? Because what's the point of having candidates that pretend to be, Communist Party or Green Party, and then as soon as they lose, they get behind the neoliberal. So they've cost the real left, the actual left, the next round, and they just turn out to be a bunch of sellouts. That's the sentiment that a lot of French people have right now. Again, I'm just going to pull this up for you. You can see the difference between Marine Le Pen and Mélenchon is, it's barely 2%. It's barely 2%. So, just by having Roussel get out, right, that potentially could have gone towards Mélenchon and put him over, and then you'd have the runoff vote with Macron and Mélenchon, right? Same thing with all the others that have run here. They're all dropping out and they're all endorsing Macron now, most of them in any case, right? So, people are really angry, right? Roussel here, I told you, and he got 2.3%, and Yannick Jadot, so he's supposed to be the Green candidate, 4%. Honestly, man, the people who are voting for the communists or the Greens, they're on the left. So it is very reasonable to assume that had these candidates actually not gone in or said go with Mélenchon, we'll maybe form a coalition, whatever, we'll work something out, we'll compromise on policy, you might have actually had the next round on April 24th being Emmanuel Macron against Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And now you're going to have what the French call, this is very funny, do you know what they say in French about voting between Marine Le Pen and Emmanuel Macron? They say it's like choosing between the plague and cholera, right? Because you had this in 2017 and now it's the same exact vote again, right? C'est choisir entre la peste et le choléra. C'est ça. C'est entièrement ça. C'est la peste et le choléra. And I want to show you over here some results from municipalities in France. Look, this is crazy. Like Mélenchon was getting 60% of the vote in Bobigny. Roubaix got 52%. Dreux 45%. Like he's doing well. He is doing well. And frankly, it's a shame that he won't be going to this next round. I'm going to read you some more of these tweets. People are so angry. They say il fallait tenir ce discours au premier tour, faire alliance avec Mélenchon. So it's saying you should have forged an alliance with Mélenchon. Vous en seriez sorti grandi et auriez laissé une trace dans l'histoire. You would have come out big and actually left your mark in the history books. So now we're going to flush the toilet and you're going to disappear like a turd. Oh man, that's fucking hilarious. That's really enormous. And again, this is my exact reaction because a few hours ago, the difference between Mélenchon and Marine Le Pen was 0.8%. It's infuriating. It's infuriating. Again, it's not so much out of hatred for Marine Le Pen. It's more out of frustration because you always have people like in the U.S. Democratic primary, and now you're seeing the French elections coming in, flooding the field, and then withdrawing and aligning themselves behind a neoliberal like Biden or Macron. It's quite disgusting, honestly. And what happens next? A lot of people are saying they're not going to vote. They've had it. They're fed up, and they're just not going to vote. Look, people saying over here, la seule consigne de vote acceptable, c'est on vote pas au second tour et on vote en masse aux législatives. So we will not vote in the runoff election on April 24th, the second round. But we should vote during the midterms, what you would call midterms in the US, right? So the parliamentary elections. So they were saying at 5 p.m., the turnout stood at 65%. It was actually quite shocking because I was following the elections the whole day, and I swear to God, it was at 25% at one point, and I was like stunned. I was like, yeah, but that has to be early, right? That can't be it. It's going to be more than that. It is more than that, thankfully. I think it's reached somewhere above 70%. Don't quote me on that. The latest figures that I can give you as of now, I'm going to give you these figures that we have now. As of 5 p.m., you had 65% voter turnout. It's quite good, right? It is down from 2017 at the same time, but who knows? We're already quite late now, but all the figures haven't come in, so it could end up being more. Here, let me read you this tweet from Glenn. He says, in France, 31% of supporters of the left-wing candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon say that in the event of a runoff between Macron and Le Pen, they'd vote for Le Pen. Only 28% said they'd vote for Macron. 41% say they wouldn't vote. See, so it's not just a bunch of tweets that I'm showing you. This is it's actually backed up by data, and I can tell you, knowing France, knowing French culture, knowing French politics, this is exactly what you would expect, right? Again, the French are very particular because they actually give a crap about their country. Again, this is why you had a movement like les Gilets jaunes, the yellow vests, right? This is why you have someone like Mélenchon, almost, clinching it from Marine Le Pen. In the US, we saw what they do to Bernie Sanders, or in the UK to Jeremy Corbyn. They do them so dirty. So dirty, right? They put a knife in their back. They call them anti-Semites, all this rubbish. And not to mention the fact that people in France, they take this seriously, like, you don't give us what we want, we're not going to vote, or, on va voter blanc, which is basically not writing anything in. It's not good, obviously. And the fact that people want to blame this on leftists and say, like, if you don't vote for Emmanuel Macron, you're handing the presidency to the far right. Emmanuel Macron is the far right. Like, there's no difference between them. The difference is this tiny. You're splitting hairs at this point. Putain, il fout de ma gueule. No, vraiment, il se fout de nos gueules. Look at this. I want to show you some of the more, like, the brain-rotting discourse that has, permeated talk about this election. Again, this is so funny when you see people who have no clue about France talking about France. Look at this tweet. They say here that Le Pen would turn France into Putin's vassal state. She represents a historic threat to one of the greatest democracies on earth. So let's take a look at this video from 2017. What's up?
Parce que l'air de rien, les grandes lignes politiques que je défends sont les grandes lignes qui sont défendues, effectivement, par M. Trump. C'est défendu par M. Poutine. Parce que l'air de rien, les grandes lignes politiques que je défends sont les grandes lignes qui sont défendues, effectivement, par M. Trump. C'est défendu par...
Okay, so I don't need to tell you that was literally a 9-second clip. So, in terms of context, it's not the best. I just want to make one thing clear. You have literally 50 million reasons to criticize Marine Le Pen and her father, right? And her, and her whole party. This is not one of them. That she's going to turn France into like some vassal state for Putin. Mais ferme ta sale gueule de merde. Ferme ta gueule. I'm so sick of this because they act like everybody they don't like is working with Putin. Just shut the fuck up. Please shut the fuck up. You're so annoying. You are so dumb. You know nothing about anything and should never speak about politics. Just shut your mouth. You're so stupid. Like, this is all they have. This is their only commentary about the election. Oh, Putin, Putin, Putin. Let me show you again how Mélenchon has the correct positions. Here's a video where he's talking about Assange and Snowden. Let's take a look.
Si vous êtes élu président, vous accordez l'asile à Julian Assange et Edward Snowden?
Évidemment. Non seulement je leur mais je les décore tous les deux. Parce que tous les deux ont aidé la France en dénonçant.
You see the response. If you asked, I don't know, Emmanuel Macron, you asked Boris Johnson, they would rather jump out of the window than answer this question, right? Actually, they would never be asked that question because the reporters that interview them, don't do their jobs. But do you see the difference? How he's correct on everything, almost everything, right? You don't have to love him, but this is the correct position to have on Assange and Snowden.